There's a man who is the second longest-serving foreign correspondent in Moscow. He's now in Berlin. He's Ben Aris, now editor-in-chief of BNE IntelliNews. Welcome once again, Ben. If sanctions were going to work to deter Vladimir Putin against a possible invasion of Ukraine, what sort of sanctions should they be?
Well, they would be extremely harsh. I mean, if Russian troops cross the border into Ukraine again, because the first point we should make is that there are already Russian troops in the Donbass who are supplying and, to some reports, they're actually organizing the separatist rebels who are fighting against Ukrainian forces there. And so Ukraine's lost control of that part of territory. But we're talking about here a sort of full-scale invasion with one of the possibilities of actually occupying Ukraine and taking it over. And if that were to happen, that would be, the largest military action since the Second World War. And the blowback that would come from the West would be enormous. I mean, you'd have a full-scale war in Europe's backyard again. And we're talking about cutting Russia off from SWIFT. We're talking about sanctions on all the top politicians and oligarchs, and also like seizing their assets. I mean, it would be extreme. But that all argues against it. I actually think the situation here is a lot more complicated, that what we're seeing is the threat of military force in order to make the West sit down at the table and negotiate with Putin. I mean, he's demanding, as part of this, that NATO give legal guarantees that Ukraine never joins NATO. And that's actually what this is all about. It's not about an imminent invasion. It's about something similar to the Cuban Missile Crisis, whereby Russia is demanding legal concessions, guarantees, and wants to do some sort of permanent security deal which settles the status of Ukraine once and for all.
Yeah, but in that respect, don't you think that actually Vladimir Putin has already won to a certain extent? So maybe the troop movement is really leverage for him, because after that phone call in that report from Francis Collins on the 7th of December, Joe Biden said, yes, I kind of understand the Russian president's position, and I'm going to try to get our European partners together for a conversation to talk about Vladimir Putin's concerns regarding NATO and how close it is to Russia's borders.
Exactly. And that's the key takeaway. I mean, Putin's been complaining about NATO's expansion to the east since 2007. I mean, he's got a real bee in the bonnet about it. And his complaints have largely gone ignored. And what he has successfully done with this is actually put the issue on the table. I mean, he's got his demands, but what he's been asking for first and foremost is for NATO and the West to actually respond and discuss this issue. And after the December 7th meeting with Biden came back, and 2 days later, on the Friday the same week, there was a meeting, a preliminary meeting between 4 significant NATO members, plus the States and Russia, whereby they start to talk about this issue. I mean, whether some sort of deal that actually can be done is a completely different question, and that would be incredibly hard to do. But Putin has had, his first victory in so much as he's put this issue on the table by using the battlefield to take the conflict off the battlefield and put it on the negotiating table so that there's some sort of security deal. And that deal's a long way away, but the talking has started.
Do you think that the EU can act in any way without American support? And if American support is critical, does Vladimir Putin regard Joe Biden as being slightly weak on this issue?
Quite the opposite. I think the Kremlin now has become fed up with the EU. I mean, the EU is a hydra, and it's driven by fractions and arguments. And he wants to shortcut all of that by going to the States. And like, Biden's in charge, Biden's back, diplomacy's back, as Biden himself said. And that because NATO is fundamentally a US-driven organization, the Kremlin has decided that they want to cut the EU out of this. The EU has to be involved because NATO is an alliance of 30 countries, including a lot of European ones. But the Kremlin's made it pretty clear with this summit with Biden in particular that they want to deal with the Americans, and then they want the Americans to sort of hurdle the cats and get Europe on board with whatever deal that they come to.
Ben, really appreciate it, as always. Ben Aris, editor-in-chief of BNE IntelliNews.